Poor young boy helps millionaire woman with flat tire. On Brooklyn Bridge, what happens next changes his life forever. The winter wind howled through the streets of Brooklyn, whipping through the cracks of aging buildings and shaking the few withered leaves that clung to the skeletal trees. In a cramped, dimly lit apartment in a run-down neighborhood, 17-year-old Leo carefully tucked a worn blanket around his 8-year-old sister, Sophia. She stirred slightly, a faint smile on her face, as she drifted deeper into sleep. Despite the chipped walls and the leaky faucet that dripped incessantly in the background, there was warmth in the room, a testament to Leo's unwavering care for his sister. Life had been far from kind to Leo. Their parents had passed away in a tragic car accident 5 years ago, leaving Leo to step into a role far beyond his years. Dropping out of school to take care of Sophia, he took on any odd jobs he could find, washing cars, delivering newspapers, and cleaning storefronts. He often worked from dawn till dusk, scraping together just enough to pay the rent and keep food on the table. Yet through it all, Leo remained optimistic, his love for his sister fueling his determination to keep going. "Tomorrow's going to be better, Sophia," he whispered softly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I promise." Leo's positivity was his most remarkable trait. Even in the face of adversity, he carried himself with a quiet dignity, never allowing bitterness to take root. His neighbors often remarked on his kindness, how he would help carry groceries for the elderly or fix a broken bike for a local kid. Despite having so little, Leo's heart was full of generosity. Across the city, in a luxurious penthouse overlooking Manhattan, Margaret Simmons stared blankly at the skyline, her hands wrapped around a steaming cup of tea. The lights of the city glittered below her, but they brought her no comfort. At 40, Margaret was at the pinnacle of her career as the CEO of a successful tech company. Her name graced the covers of business magazines, and her decisions shaped industries. But the emptiness she felt in her heart was inescapable. Margaret's recent divorce had left her emotionally drained. Her ex-husband, a charming man who had once swept her off her feet, had revealed his true colors over time. He had used her wealth and connections for his own gain, and when the truth came to light, the betrayal cut deeper than she could have imagined. Margaret had always been a fiercely independent woman, but the pain of being used by someone she had loved left her questioning everything. Her career became her sanctuary, a place where she could focus her energy and avoid the gnawing loneliness that crept in during quiet moments. But even her work no longer brought her the fulfillment it once had. Despite her success, Margaret felt adrift, disconnected from the world around her. That evening, as she stepped into her sleek black car to drive home, she sighed deeply, her thoughts weighed down by the monotony of her existence. She often took the Brooklyn Bridge on her way back. It was her favorite route, offering a brief respite as she admired the iconic structure lit against the night sky. Tonight, however, the bridge would become more than just a scenic route. It would become the setting for a chance encounter that would change her life. His fingers, already numb from the chill, tightened around the handlebars of his bike as he slowed to a stop. He saw a woman pacing beside the vehicle, her silhouette stiff and tense against the dim glow of the bridge lights. Her coat was expensive, her shoes immaculate, yet she seemed out of place, struggling against the elements with an air of frustration. "Excuse me, ma'am," Leo called out, his voice carrying over the sound of traffic below. "Do you need help?" Margaret spun around, startled. Her eyes quickly scanned the boy before her, a teenager with a patched jacket, scuffed sneakers, and a bike that had clearly seen better days. His cheeks were pink from the cold, his breath forming small clouds in the icy air. For a moment she hesitated, her mind flashing to all the warnings she had heard about strangers in the city. It's just a flat tire," she said finally, keeping her tone guarded. "I was about to call someone." Leo glanced at the tire, then back at Margaret. "I can fix that for you," he offered. "Do you have a spare?" Margaret narrowed her eyes slightly. "Why would you do that?" she asked, suspicion creeping into her voice. In her world, nothing came for free. Every gesture, every favor, always had a price attached. Leo shrugged, his expression open and unassuming. "It's cold, and you look like you could use a hand. That's all." Margaret studied him for a moment longer, her instincts warring with her cynicism. Finally, she nodded toward the trunk. "There's a spare in the back." Leo set his bike aside and got to work, rolling up his sleeves despite the biting wind. He retrieved the spare tire and jack, working with practiced efficiency. Margaret watched him cautiously at first, ready to step in if he showed any sign of ulterior motives. But as the minutes ticked by, she began to relax. There was no hidden agenda in his movements, no sign of deceit in his demeanor. He worked quietly, his focus entirely on the task at hand. "You've done this before," Margaret remarked, breaking the silence. Leo nodded without looking up. "A few times? My dad taught me when I was little. Said it's always good to know how to fix something yourself." Margaret felt a pang of unexpected emotion at his words. There was something refreshing about his simplicity, his willingness to help without expecting anything in return. In her world, even the smallest gesture often came with strings attached. As Leo tightened the last bolt, he straightened up and dusted off his hands. "There you go, good as new," he said, flashing a small, satisfied smile. Margaret reached into her purse and pulled out a crisp $100 bill. "Here," she said, holding it out to him. "Thank you for your help." Leo glanced at the money, then shook his head. "That's okay, ma'am. I didn't do it for money." Leo shrugged again, his expression sincere. "Because helping someone who needs it is just the right thing to do. My sister says it's what makes the world a little better." Margaret's hand faltered as she stared at him, the bill still suspended in the air. In her world of power plays and transactions, such words were rare, almost foreign. She lowered her hand slowly, slipping the bill back into her purse. "What's your name?" she asked, her voice softer now. "Leo," he replied. "And you?" "Margaret," she said after a pause. The name felt heavy on her tongue, as if it carried with it all the burdens she tried to hide. "Well, Margaret," Leo said with a grin, "next time you might want to check your tires before heading out in this weather." Margaret let out a small laugh, the sound surprising even herself. It had been a long time since she'd laughed without pretense. "I'll keep that in mind." As Leo reached for his bike, Margaret found herself compelled to ask, "Why were you out here so late, Leo?" He hesitated, his hands tightening slightly on the handlebars. "I was delivering newspapers. Gotta make ends meet for me and my sister." "You have a sister?" Margaret asked, intrigued. "Yeah," he said with a nod. "Sophia. She's 8. Smartest kid you'll ever meet. Everything I do, it's for her." Margaret felt a lump rise in her throat at his words. There was a pride in his voice, a quiet strength that belied his years. For all his youth, Leo carried himself with a maturity that came from living a life far harder than most people could imagine. He listened, growing more understanding as he grew with his youth. "Well, Leo," she said finally, her tone thoughtful, "you've given me a lot to think about tonight." He smiled again, the kind of smile that reached his eyes. "Glad I could help. Stay warm, ma'am." With that, he mounted his bike and pedaled off into the night, the red taillight blinking like a distant star as he disappeared down the bridge. Margaret stood there for a moment longer, her hands buried deep in her coat pockets, the cold forgotten, as her mind lingered on the boy who had stopped to help her. Leo's words echoed in her mind. Helping someone who needs it is just the right thing to do. It was such a simple statement, yet it carried a weight that Margaret couldn't ignore. In her world of contracts and negotiations, such selflessness was a rarity. She had spent years surrounded by people who saw her as a means to an end, her wealth and power the only things they valued. But this boy, this stranger, had shown her a kindness that asked for nothing in return. As Margaret climbed back into her car and started the engine, she couldn't shake the feeling that their encounter was more than just a fleeting moment. There was something about Leo, his honesty, his resilience, that stirred something deep within her, something she hadn't felt in a long time. Driving off into the city lights, Margaret found herself wondering about the boy who had helped her, the life he lived, and the sister he cared for so deeply. Little did she know, this moment on the bridge was just the beginning of a story that would change both their lives forever. Margaret couldn't get Leo out of her mind. His simple yet profound kindness had left a deep impression on her, stirring emotions she hadn't felt in years. Back at her office the next morning, she stared out at the Manhattan skyline, her coffee untouched, as thoughts of the boy and his story lingered. The mention of his sister Sophia had struck a chord. Margaret couldn't stop imagining a young boy burdened with responsibilities far beyond his age, working tirelessly to provide for someone he loved. Finally, she picked up the phone and called her assistant, Carolyn. "I need you to find someone," she said, her voice steady but tinged with urgency. "A boy named Leo. He was delivering newspapers near Brooklyn Bridge last night." Caroline, used to Margaret's unusual requests, nodded without hesitation. "Do you have any other details?" Margaret paused, recalling his patched jacket and weary eyes. "No, but I trust you'll figure it out. He mentioned having a younger sister, Sophia. That might help." Over the next few days, Margaret anxiously awaited updates. When Caroline finally called with news, Margaret felt a strange mix of relief and anticipation. "I found him," Caroline said. "He lives in a small apartment in Brooklyn with his sister. It's modest, to say the least. But," she added the last part unfamiliarly, strangely relieved. Margaret wasted no time. That afternoon she had her driver take her to Leo's address. As the car pulled up to the run-down building, she felt a pang of guilt. The chipped paint, broken windows, and graffiti-covered walls spoke of lives lived in hardship. She wondered how Leo managed to keep such a positive spirit in these surroundings. Climbing the narrow stairs, she reached the third floor and knocked on a door marked with peeling numbers. A moment later, Leo opened it, his face a mix of surprise and confusion. "Margaret?" he asked, blinking. "What are you doing here?" "I came to see you," she said with a small smile. "May I come in?" Leo hesitated, glancing back into the apartment. "It's not much," he muttered, stepping aside. Margaret stepped into the tiny space, her sharp eyes taking in every detail. The living room was cramped, with mismatched furniture and a small heater struggling against the winter cold. On a makeshift desk in the corner, a pile of school books sat neatly stacked beside a hand-drawn picture of a smiling boy and girl, labeled Leo and Sophia in crayon. From the bedroom, a young girl emerged, her wide brown eyes curious. "Leo, who's this?" she asked softly. "This is Margaret," Leo replied, his tone guarded. "She's someone I helped the other night." Margaret crouched down to Sophia's level, offering her a warm smile. "You must be Sophia. Your brothers told me a lot about you." Sophia smiled shyly, her small hands clutching the hem of her sweater. "He takes care of me. And he does a wonderful job," Margaret said sincerely, glancing at Leo. "He's very proud of you." As they sat together, Margaret listened to Leo talk about his daily routine, delivering newspapers, running errands, and picking up odd jobs to make ends meet. Sophia chimed in occasionally, her bright spirit shining despite the obvious challenges they faced. Margaret's heart ached as she saw the weight of responsibility Leo carried, far heavier than any 17-year-old should bear. Finally, Margaret spoke. Leo, I came here because I want to help. You've done so much for your sister, but I can see how hard it's been. You shouldn't have to do this alone. Leo stiffened slightly. We're doing fine, he said quickly. I don't need charity. It's not charity, Margaret replied gently. It's gratitude. You helped me without expecting anything in return. This is my way of paying it forward. Leo frowned, his defenses rising. Why would you want to help us? You don't even know us. Margaret hesitated, choosing her words carefully. Because I've been where you are. Not financially, but emotionally. I know what it's like to feel like you're carrying the weight of the world, and I know how much it means when someone shows kindness. Let me be that person for you. Leo looked at her, his expression a mixture of suspicion and vulnerability. What are you offering? For starters, Margaret said, I can help you find a better job, something steady that pays well, and I'd like to sponsor Sophia's education. She's a bright girl, she deserves every opportunity to succeed. Sophia's eyes lit up, but Leo's narrowed. Why? He asked bluntly. Why do you care? Margaret met his gaze evenly. Because the world needs more people like you, Leo. People who give without expecting anything in return. If I can make your life a little easier, then it's worth it. Despite her sincerity, Leo struggled to accept her offer. He had seen too many instances of people like Margaret, wealthy, well-meaning but ultimately distant, offering help from a place of guilt rather than genuine care. He feared becoming another charity case, pitied but not truly understood. That night, after Margaret left, Leo wrestled with his doubts. Sophia, however, was overjoyed. She's like a fairy godmother, she exclaimed, clutching the drawing Margaret had complimented earlier. Maybe she can help us, Leo. Maybe things can get better. Leo sighed, running a hand through his hair. I just don't want us to owe anyone, Soph. I don't want someone looking down on us like we're helpless. But we do need help, Sophia said softly. And she seems nice. Maybe she really means it. The next morning, Margaret received a call. It was Leo. I'll accept your help, he said, his voice hesitant. But only if it's for Sophia. She deserves the best. Margaret smiled, relief washing over her. I promise, Leo, this isn't about pity. It's about giving you both the chance you deserve. From that moment, their lives began to intertwine. Margaret connected Leo with a stable job at one of her company's offices, where his hard-working nature quickly won over his colleagues. She also enrolled Sophia in a private school, covering the tuition and ensuring she had everything she needed to succeed. Yet even as things improved, Leo remained cautious. He couldn't shake the nagging fear that Margaret's generosity came with strings attached. But over time, as he saw her genuine care for Sophia and her willingness to listen without judgment, his walls began to crack. Margaret, too, found herself changed by the experience. Watching Leo's dedication to his sister reignited something in her, a belief in the goodness of people, a reminder of the strength found in love and sacrifice. Though the journey was far from over, both Leo and Margaret were beginning to realize that their connection was more than just a chance encounter. It was the start of something transformative for both their lives and their hearts. Though Margaret had grown to trust Leo, a lingering doubt gnawed at her. Her past experiences with people taking advantage of her wealth and generosity had left scars she couldn't easily ignore. She wanted to believe in Leo's integrity, but she also knew that trust had to be earned fully. Margaret decided to test Leo, not out of malice, but to prove to herself that her instincts about him were right. She devised a plan to place Leo in a situation where his values would be tested, hoping to see if his actions would align with the image of selflessness and honesty he projected. One afternoon, Margaret invited Leo to accompany her to a charity gala, a high-profile event filled with influential business leaders and celebrities. Leo was hesitant at first, feeling out of place among the wealthy and powerful, but Margaret insisted, framing it as an opportunity for him to experience a different world. The gala was held in a grand ballroom in Manhattan, its opulence overwhelming. Chandeliers sparkled overhead, the air was filled with the soft hum of conversation, and waiters in crisp uniforms moved gracefully through the crowd with trays of champagne. Margaret introduced Leo to several of her acquaintances, emphasizing his resilience and hard work. Members of the audience gave their utmost attention and favored Leo with a ball and several large wine glasses. As the evening progressed, Margaret arranged for Leo to meet Richard Calloway, a prominent investor known for his wealth and influence. Richard was charming and persuasive, with a reputation for testing the mettle of those he deemed promising. Margaret had briefed Richard beforehand, asking him to present Leo with an enticing but morally ambiguous proposition. Richard greeted Leo warmly, his sharp eyes taking in every detail of the young man before him. "Margaret's told me a lot about you," he said smoothly. "I admire your story, Leo. It's not often you see someone your age with so much determination." "Thank you, sir," Leo replied, his voice steady despite the intimidating presence of the man before him. Richard leaned in slightly, lowering his voice as if to share a secret. "I have a proposition for you. I'm always looking for talented young individuals to mentor, and I think you have potential. There's a position at one of my companies that could set you on a path to success, quickly. High salary, perks, the works." Leo frowned slightly, sensing there was more to the offer. "What kind of position?" he asked cautiously. Richard smiled. "Think of it as a fixer role. You'd handle sensitive tasks for me, no questions asked. It's nothing illegal, of course," he added with a chuckle. "Just, bending the rules now and then. Sometimes that's the price of getting ahead." Leo's stomach turned. The offer was tempting in its promise of wealth and security, but it came with a cost, one that clashed with the values his parents had instilled in him and the integrity he had worked so hard to maintain. Durand was leaning into the window looking out, while the others talked about his decision. "Thank you, Mr. Calloway," Leo said after a moment, his voice calm but firm. "I appreciate the opportunity, but I can't accept it. I'm looking for a career I can be proud of, one where I don't have to compromise my principles." Richard raised an eyebrow, surprised by the young man's response. "Are you sure? Opportunities like this don't come around often. Think of what you could do for your sister with the kind of money this position offers." Leo's jaw tightened, but he didn't waver. "I want to provide for my sister, but not at the expense of my integrity. She looks up to me, and I want to set an example she can be proud of." Richard leaned back, a slow smile spreading across his face. "Well said, Leo. Very well said." From across the room, Margaret had been observing the interaction closely. She couldn't hear their conversation, but she saw the tension in Leo's posture and the way he carried himself with quiet dignity. When Richard approached her afterward, he nodded approvingly. "You were right about him," Richard said. "The boy's solid, didn't even flinch." Margaret felt a swell of relief and pride. She approached Leo, who looked visibly uncomfortable in the extravagant setting but also resolute, as though he had just passed a test he hadn't realized he was taking. "Leo," she said gently, "how are you holding up?" "Honestly," he replied with a small laugh, "I feel like a fish out of water, but I think I handled myself okay." Margaret smiled, her admiration for him growing. "More than okay. You proved something tonight, not just to me, but to yourself. You know who you are, and that's rare in a world like this." Leo looked at her, his expression softening. "I don't want to be someone who gets ahead by stepping on others or bending the rules. My parents taught me better than that. And I guess I just want Sophia to see that it's possible to succeed without losing yourself." Margaret's heart swelled at his words. In Leo, she saw the kind of integrity she had spent years searching for, a reminder that goodness still existed in the world. "Leo," she said, her voice filled with conviction, "you don't just have potential. You have something far more valuable, character. And that's what will take you farther than any shortcut ever could." The evening had confirmed what Margaret already suspected. Leo was not like the others she had encountered in her life. He wasn't motivated by greed or ambition, but by love, responsibility, and a commitment to doing what was right. For Margaret, it was a revelation, a chance to believe in people again, to see that trust wasn't always misplaced. As they left the gala, Margaret felt lighter than she had in years, her faith in humanity slowly being restored by the quiet strength of the boy who had helped her that cold night on the bridge. And for Leo, the experience solidified his resolve to stay true to himself, no matter the challenges he faced. After the gala, Margaret couldn't shake the feeling that she owed Leo more than just a passing act of kindness. His integrity, resilience, and unwavering dedication to his sister had rekindled something in her, a belief in people she had long since lost. One evening, as the city buzzed quietly outside her penthouse, Margaret invited Leo over for dinner. It was a simple gesture, but she felt it was time to let him see a part of her life she rarely shared with anyone. As they sat across from each other at her dining table, Leo couldn't help but marvel at the stark contrast between their lives. The room was elegant but understated, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a breathtaking view of the Manhattan skyline. Yet despite the luxury around him, Margaret's expression was somber. "Oh," she began, her voice soft but steady. "I need to tell you something. I want you to understand why helping you and Sophia means so much to me." Leo tilted his head, curious but cautious. "I'm listening." Margaret took a deep breath, her gaze drifting to the skyline. "I wasn't always this guarded," she admitted. "When I was younger, I believed in love, in trust, in people. But life has a way of teaching you hard lessons." She hesitated, her hands folding tightly in her lap. "I was married once, to a man I thought loved me for who I was. But, as it turned out, he only loved what I could give him. Money, power, connections. He used me, Leo. For years, I ignored the signs, convinced myself that we had something real. But when the truth came out, it was like the ground had been ripped out from under me." Margaret's voice wavered slightly, and Leo's chest tightened at the vulnerability she was showing him. "After the divorce," she continued, "I told myself I'd never trust anyone again. People became nothing more than transactions to me, clients, employees, acquaintances. I didn't let anyone get close, because I couldn't bear the thought of being hurt like that again." Leo nodded, his voice quiet. "That's a tough way to live." "It was," Margaret admitted, her eyes meeting his. "But then I met you. You didn't ask for anything, didn't expect anything. You helped me on that bridge because you saw someone who needed it, not because of what I could give you. That changed something in me, Leo. It made me want to believe in people again." Leo sat back, digesting her words. He had never imagined the confident, composed Margaret could carry such pain beneath the surface. But it also explained so much about her cautious nature, her insistence on testing him, her determination to help, and ways that mattered. "I'm sorry you went through that," he said sincerely. "No one deserves to be treated like that." Margaret smiled faintly. "Thank you, but meeting you and Sophia has given me hope that there's still good in the world." She leaned forward slightly, her tone growing more determined. And that's why I want to do more than just offer you a job or pay for Sophia's school. I want to invest in both of you. You have so much potential, Leo, and I want to help you reach it. Margaret's proposal was more generous than anything Leo had anticipated. She wanted to enroll him in a prestigious high school program that catered to gifted students from underserved backgrounds. It would be rigorous, but it would open doors to opportunities he had never dreamed of. For Sophia, Margaret had arranged for her to join a scholarship-based private school that specialized in nurturing creative and intellectual growth. She even offered to cover the costs of tutors, extracurricular activities, and anything else they needed to succeed. Leo's initial reaction was one of hesitation. "Margaret, this is incredible, but it's a lot. I don't know if I can accept it." "What not?" she asked gently. "You've worked so hard to give Sophia a better life. Let me help you do that. This isn't charity, Leo. It's an investment in two people who deserve a chance." Leo struggled with the offer. He had spent years fending for himself, unwilling to rely on anyone else for fear of being let down. But as he looked into Margaret's eyes, he saw no pity, no condescension, only genuine care. "I don't want Sophia or me to feel like we're just taking handouts," he said finally. "I want us to earn it." Margaret nodded, respecting his resolve. "And you will. This isn't about handouts, Leo. It's about giving you the tools to build the life you want. You've already proven your worth 10 times over. Now it's time for the world to see it." Over the next few weeks, Margaret set her plans into motion. She worked tirelessly to ensure both Leo and Sophia had everything they needed for their new opportunities. Leo's initial discomfort began to fade as he saw the positive changes unfolding in their lives. Sophia, in particular, thrived in her new environment, her natural curiosity and creativity blossoming in ways Leo had always dreamed of. For Margaret, the experience was equally transformative. Helping Leo and Sophia gave her a renewed sense of purpose, filling the void left by her years of isolation. She found herself looking forward to their visits, to hearing about their progress, and sharing in their victories. One evening, as Leo prepared to leave after a long conversation about his future, Margaret stopped him at the door. "Leo," she said, her voice steady but warm, "you've given me more than you realize. Helping you and Sophia has reminded me of who I wanted to be, not just a successful CEO, but someone who makes a difference." Leo smiled, his expression sincere. "And you've given us a chance we never thought we'd have. Thank you, Margaret." As the door closed behind him, Margaret felt a rare sense of peace. For the first time in years, she felt like she was part of something meaningful, something real. And for Leo, the trust and care Margaret had shown became a turning point, strengthening his resolve to make the most of the opportunities ahead. Together, they were building a connection that would forever change their lives. Years passed, and the seeds Margaret had sown in Leo and Sophia's lives began to bear fruit. Through her unwavering support and his relentless determination, Leo grew into a confident and accomplished young man. From the first day he walked into the prestigious high school Margaret had arranged for him, Leo had vowed to make the most of every opportunity. The transition had been challenging at first. Surrounded by classmates from privileged backgrounds, Leo often felt out of place, but he quickly realized that his struggles and life experiences gave him a unique perspective, one that made him resilient and resourceful. He excelled academically, impressing his teachers with his work ethic and thoughtful approach. Outside of school, he volunteered at shelters and food banks, channeling his gratitude into service for others. Sophia, too, flourished under Margaret's guidance. At her new school, her natural creativity blossomed as she explored art and music. With Leo's encouragement and Margaret's mentorship, she became a bright, confident young girl with big dreams of her own. She often spoke of becoming a teacher, inspired by those who had helped her along the way. By the time Leo graduated high school, he had earned a full scholarship to a prestigious university. Margaret was there at his graduation, sitting in the front row next to Sophia, her face glowing with pride. When Leo walked across the stage to receive his diploma, the applause was thunderous. But for Margaret, the moment was more than just a celebration of his achievement. It was a testament to the power of belief, opportunity, and perseverance. "Congratulations, Leo," she said afterward, pulling him into a warm embrace. "You've worked so hard for this, and I couldn't be prouder." "Thank you, Margaret," he replied, his voice thick with emotion. "I wouldn't be here without you." Margaret smiled, shaking her head. "You've earned this, Leo. All I did was open a door. You walked through it." Leo's college years were marked by even greater accomplishments. He majored in business and social work, combining his ambition with his desire to make a difference. During an internship with a nonprofit organization, Leo began to envision a future where he could help children like himself and Sophia, kids who had lost their parents and struggled to find stability in a world that often overlooked them. After graduating with honors, Leo wasted no time turning his vision into reality. With Margaret's guidance and connections, he founded the Bright Futures Foundation, a nonprofit organization dedicated to providing shelter, education, and mentorship for orphaned and underprivileged children. The foundation quickly gained traction, attracting donors and volunteers who were inspired by Leo's story. Margaret was one of the foundation's biggest supporters, not just financially, but as an active board member. Together, she and Leo worked tirelessly to expand the organization's reach, opening shelters and programs across the city. Sophia, now a young adult studying education, often volunteered at the foundation, helping to tutor children and lead art workshops. For Leo, the work was deeply personal. Every child who walked through the foundation's doors reminded him of his own struggles. The nights spent worrying about rent, the mornings delivering newspapers in the freezing cold, the uncertainty that had once clouded his future. He poured his heart into ensuring that no child would have to face those challenges alone. Margaret, too, found renewed purpose in her involvement with the foundation. Her once cynical view of the world had been replaced by a sense of hope and fulfillment. Watching Leo and Sophia thrive gave her a deep sense of pride and joy. Though she had once feared opening her heart to others, her bond with Leo had shown her that trust and connection were worth the risk. Over time, Margaret and Leo's relationship evolved into something akin to family. They celebrated milestones together: Sophia's high school graduation, the opening of new foundation centers, and Leo's marriage to a fellow social worker who shared his passion for helping others. At each event, Margaret stood proudly by his side, her role as mentor and friend firmly cemented. Flash forward to today, September 11th, 2010, the massacre at U.S. Center for Intelligence officials. One crisp autumn evening, Leo and Margaret found themselves back on the Brooklyn Bridge, the place where their journey had begun. The city lights sparkled around them, and the hum of traffic filled the air. Standing at the railing, they gazed out over the water, their breaths visible in the cool air. "Hard to believe it's been so many years," Leo said, his voice tinged with nostalgia. "This bridge, it changed everything." Margaret smiled, her eyes misty. "It's funny how life works, isn't it? A flat tire and a chance encounter. Who would have thought?" "You did," Leo replied, turning to her. "You believed in me when no one else did. You changed my life, Margaret, and I'll never stop being grateful for that." Margaret shook her head, a tear slipping down her cheek. "You changed mine too, Leo. You reminded me of the good in people, of the power of kindness. You gave me hope again." They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of their shared journey filling the space between them. Finally, Margaret placed a hand on Leo's shoulder. "You've done so much, Leo. You've turned your pain into purpose, and I couldn't be prouder of the man you've become." "And I couldn't have done it without you," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "You're family to me, Margaret. You always will be." Margaret smiled, her heart full. "And you're the son I never had." As they walked away from the bridge, side by side, the bond they had forged felt unbreakable. Together they had transformed their pain into something beautiful, a legacy of love, trust, and hope that would continue to change lives for generations to come. On a crisp, sunlit morning, Leo found himself once again standing on the Brooklyn Bridge, the place where everything had begun. The familiar hum of traffic surrounded him, the rhythmic clinking of tires on the metal grates, a comforting backdrop to his thoughts. The city stretched out before him, alive with energy and possibility, a stark contrast to the cold, quiet night when he had first met Margaret. Leo leaned against the railing, gazing at the water below. His reflection danced in the rippling waves, but it was a different Leo staring back, a man shaped by the struggles of his past, the love of his sister, and the faith of a woman who had seen something in him that he hadn't yet seen in himself. Behind him, a voice called out, pulling him from his thoughts. "Leo!" Sophia's cheerful tone rang out as she approached, her confident stride a reflection of the young woman she had become. Leo turned, his face lighting up with pride as he saw his sister. Now in her early 20s, Sophia exuded a quiet strength and poise that reminded him of their late parents. She was flourishing in her studies to become a teacher, driven by the same compassion and determination that had carried them through their darkest days. "It's a beautiful day," Sophia said, stopping beside him and leaning on the railing. "Hard to believe this is where it all started." "Ah." Sophia glanced up at him, her eyes warm. "You've come so far, Leo. We both have. And it's all because of that moment. One act of kindness changed everything." Across the bridge, Margaret stood quietly, watching the siblings from a distance. She had chosen to hang back, wanting to give them a moment alone. Margaret's heart swelled with pride as she observed the man Leo had become. His foundation, bright futures, was thriving, touching countless lives. Children who had once faced bleak futures now had hope, education, and support. All because Leo had dared to dream beyond his circumstances. For Margaret, the journey had been equally transformative. Helping Leo and Sophia had reignited her faith in humanity and reminded her of the power of connection. No longer guarded or cynical, she now embraced life with a renewed sense of purpose, dedicating herself to causes that truly mattered. Leo and Sophia had become like family to her, their bond deep and unshakable. Margaret smiled to herself as she watched Leo and Sophia laugh together, their bond a testament to the love and resilience that had carried them through so much. For the first time in years, she felt a profound sense of fulfillment, a sense that everything had fallen into place as it was meant to. As the morning sun climbed higher, Margaret approached the siblings, her steps confident but unhurried. Leo turned as she neared, his face breaking into a wide grin. "Margaret," he said warmly, "you couldn't resist joining us, could you?" Margaret chuckled. "You know me too well." She stood beside them, her gaze sweeping across the skyline. "I just wanted to take in the view with you. It feels fitting." The three of them stood in companionable silence for a moment, the weight of their shared history grounding them in the present. Finally, Margaret turned to Leo, her expression serious but kind. "You've done something remarkable, Leo," she said. "Not just for yourself and Sophia, but for so many others. You've shown that one act of kindness can ripple out and change lives in ways we can't even imagine." Leo shook his head modestly. "I just did what felt right, Margaret. You're the one who believed in me, who gave me the chance to do more. And you took that chance and turned it into something extraordinary," Margaret replied firmly. "That's all you, Leo." Sophia chimed in, her voice bright. "Margaret's right. You've inspired so many people, including me." Leo's eyes softened as he looked at his sister and Margaret. "I couldn't have done it without you both. You've been my family, my support, my reason to keep going." Margaret's smile deepened. "And you've given me hope, Leo. You've reminded me of what truly matters: connection, compassion, and the courage to believe in people." As the sun climbed higher, Leo turned his gaze back to the bridge, reflecting on the journey that had brought them here. His thoughts drifted to the countless children now thriving because of his foundation, the joy he saw in Sophia's growth, and the trust Margaret had placed in him. In that moment, he realized that his life was a mosaic of moments, some painful, some joyful, but all of them necessary to create the man he had become. And at the heart of it all was a simple act of kindness, a moment of selflessness that had set everything in motion. Leo's story is a powerful reminder of the ripple effect of kindness. His decision to stop and help Margaret that cold night on the bridge had not only transformed his own life, but also changed the lives of countless others. Margaret, once disillusioned by betrayal, found hope and purpose through Leo's unwavering goodness. Together, they proved that small acts of generosity and trust can spark extraordinary transformations. As the three of them walked off the bridge, side by side, they carried with them the knowledge that they had created something lasting and meaningful, a legacy of love, resilience, and faith in the power of human connection. For Leo, Margaret, and Sophia, the Brooklyn Bridge was no longer just a landmark. It was a symbol of the journey they had taken together, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, the light of kindness can guide us to a better future. And so, a single act of kindness on the Brooklyn Bridge transformed not only Leo's life, but also Margaret's, and countless others. This story is a testament to the power of compassion, the resilience of the human spirit, and the incredible impact one small gesture can have. Thank you for watching, and remember, kindness, no matter how small, has the power to change lives. If this story moves you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspirational tales. See you next time.